why the repeated visual reminder that the Malto family is separated by species. That is directly opposite to the stated purpose of the show. Hello, my wonderful viewers, and welcome to another episode of Betty Adams Overanalyzes. Today, we're going to take a look at the good jokes, the bad writing, and the ugly implications of Transformers EarthSpark Season 1, Last Hope, which ends the first season. This is a collection of points that didn't fit into any of the first 3 videos on the episode pair, but wow, there's so much wrong here. I'm going to jump right into the spoilers, so if you don't want any of those, you can click away and check out the links below the video to get yourself a copy of Humans Are Weird, We Took a Vote, a collection of short, absurd science fiction stories, now available in audiobook form. There are 3 small points that stuck out to me, both good and bad for this episode, and 3 major world-building points that stuck in my craw for either technical writing issues, real-world moral issues, or both. Let's get the little things out of the way first. There is a real 80s villain vibe going on in Mandroid's evil lair. That dark spire of rock with its glowing vein of energon reminds me strongly of Skeletor's Snake Mountain, and of every other evil wizard mountain fortress from that era. Then you have the 2 Sharkticons, which are very, very much reminiscent of Bebop and Rocksteady from the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. You know, the mutated villains, mooks. From the bodacious and muscle-bound design, to their pie-eating grins, to their adorable muscle man attitude, even to their names. As a matter of fact, I have forgotten their names. I did not write their names down in my notes, but I do remember thinking that their names even sounded very similar to Bebop and Rocksteady. Which makes sense, given that Dale Malinowski and at least one of the other creators are long-term Ninja Turtle animators. I, for one, really enjoyed the Snake Mountain Ninja Turtle vibe. I'm an 80s baby, of course, so I am wondering if it was just my nostalgia speaking or if the vibe just works for the show. Because, don't get me wrong, this isn't even homaging. This is just creating the same spirit or flavor of experience. And I do wonder if the average viewer who didn't grow up in the 80s cartoons would enjoy that flavor. On the other hand, the next enjoyable bit came right out of the early aughts and was a callback to Transformers Prime. There's this joke. Agent Scholler decides to liven up a bit of a road trip with some music, and when he is vetoed, he protests that Optimus Prime loves his playlists. If you watch Transformers Prime, you will recall the scene where Fowler has to go on a long haul with Optimus and turns on the radio, whereupon a much less than impressed Optimus clearly grits his robotic mental teeth and bears with the playlist out of politeness. It was a good joke, a nice connection to generational callbacks, and I got a laugh out of it. There's a very similar joke in the Bayverse movies, with Optimus having to deal with the playlist of the soldier who was assigned to him. The other incident, having to deal with Agent Shoulder, didn't work out quite so well. When the heroes are planning their daring adventure, there's a scene where the well-trained soldier, Agent Shoulder, who breaks ranks and charges screaming out of an emotional rage, when none of the younger characters did that. Of course, he did just watch a mandroid torture his sister to death in a truly horrific manner in a children's show, but we have watched Shoulder being the pinnacle of discipline up to this point. He has trained his body and mind, he has perfect trigger discipline, instantly noticing when there is a civilian in the line of fire, and reacting fast enough to prevent his less disciplined soldiers from shooting said civilian. He doesn't eat junk food, he is so well known for being dedicated to discipline that he is able to confront and change Agent Croft's behavior when she wanted to arrest Mom and Pop Malto at the racetrack. Yes, watching a disciplined soldier break from grief can be a strong emotional moment, but I really don't think it was earned in this moment. Possibly because of that weird dual nature that I've gone over in Agent Shoulder before. It's like the show didn't know if they were writing a derpy idiot or a competent soldier. The writers wanted this cool moment, but just like when Shoulder tossed down his badge, they had no idea how to get there logically, or rather, how to weave the story around this moment. So all we see is the most disciplined soldier in this situation, breaking discipline for no apparent reason, while literal children stick to the plan. And then the fight scene starts. And the fight scenes were consistently, thoroughly amazing. As long as our heroes were punching things, I thoroughly enjoyed this episode. I have said it before, and I'll say it again. This show knows how to lay out a fight. This show even knows how to lay out a battlefield, which is trickier. I kept experiencing this moment where I would be really into the fight, enjoying every aspect of the moment, and then the story would slow down and the characters would start talking. And I would just end up being kicked out of my immersion and repulsed by their warped morality. Despite how awesome the final battle was, when I stepped back and considered the overall image, I found it repulsive. You have the older generation, as represented by Megatron and Optimus, getting the scrap deliberately beaten out of them by the new younger generation of Hope. You have the old guard getting taken down by the new, the better, the morally superior generation. This is enhanced by the earlier scene when the Maltos had captured Shockwave, and they were whinging on about how it was so unfair that they had to fix the mess that Optimus and Megatron left. While not exactly wrong, that framing was profoundly disingenuous. Optimus and Megatron, in their turn, had been left with a world, a very, very dangerous world. They came into a world that was significantly more restrictive, more unaccepting than the one the Maltobots are sparked into. And, of course, they made their mistakes, but when one generation lays so much blame on the previous generation, and pays no attention to their own faults, their own mistakes, and that is very much an element of this show. It just comes off as the ignorant whining of someone who is unable to recognize the suffering that others have gone through. In line with what we've seen from the rest of the show, with how unwilling the Maltobots are to take into consideration the suffering of the people of Earth, as evidenced when they broke up Robbie's friendship in the 2-episode pair home. This presentation of the Maltobots blaming Optimus for the situation that they're in, for claiming that they're cleaning up his mess. It is arrogant, it is self-centered, it is ignorant, and it seems like they're trying to find excuses not to do things. I don't think this is what the writers intended, but that is what is there on the screen. Death of the author here. The Maltobots are these self-centered, lacking empathy little brats who cannot take the time to see that the people that came before them were born into a world that was probably even more messed up than theirs. And it leaves a very sour taste in my brain. There is another issue that is just bad writing. There was entire episodes dedicated to the fact that the Maltobots don't have energon in their veins. They are not Cybertronians. Whatever power source they have, it's not energon. And it was shown that the Deep Dweller could not absorb energon from them. And that the quintessent absorption tech doesn't work on them. And now, once Mandroid raises the old weapon that didn't work on them, it now works on them. And it drains the energon out of the Maltobots instantly. There is an explanation, of course, but I have to headcanon it in. The headcanon being that Mandroid somehow found a way to harness the cyber sleeves to pull not only the energon from all the Cybertronians, but whatever energy was there from the Terrans. Because again, the Terrans don't have energon. If that weapon was only draining energon, it wouldn't have drained them. But it did drain them. We saw it. So obviously the headcanon explanation is that the cyber sleeves were responsible somehow for converting whatever was in the Terrans into energon. But again, I have to headcanon that, and that's not good writing. That is a problem with bad writing right there, which is hardly surprising at this point. Then there's the thing that they had 26 episodes with plenty of filler. So why did the final few minutes of this episode feel so preposterously rushed? The battle wraps up so quickly, it feels like there was a significant portion of the story missing. It didn't feel satisfying. And then you have what is arguably the biggest problem. The core of this show, its very message, is that the Maltos are a family, doesn't matter what species they are. But twice now, and at subtler times during the show has shown a clear divide between the human and the Terran members of the family. When Quintus Prime brain kidnaps Mo in order to convince her to continue working as his child soldier, he only brings the awarenesses of the human Maltos. And this doesn't make sense. Why would he have access to the parents' minds? It kind of makes sense that he can hijack the kids' minds, but why would he bring the parents along? How could he bring the parents along? And why didn't he bring any of the Terrans with them? They were just standing around not doing anything. From an in-universe perspective, it doesn't make sense. But from a writer's perspective, it makes even less sense. Because when Quintus Prime summoned the Maltos, and Quintus Prime repeatedly refers to them as the Malto family, he only summons the human members. And artistically, this sets up the actual family that was called, and, the extras. It was a very poor artistic choice, and of course, nobody thinks for a moment that they were actually trying to do that, but it shows poor direction. Basically, once you take the characters out of a fist fight or a battle scene, the directors don't seem to know what to do. And you get one of those scenes, and it really sticks out because it's at the end of the battle scene where the really good direction was. The family comes in for a hug, but only the human members hug. And then the Terrans are just standing around outside the circle, as it were. And it was for a significant number of seconds, and it was a scene that was being lingered on. And again, it was just really, really bad directions. But that's twice now that artistically a major episode has set up that the humans and the Terrans are separate. It is, again, bad writing. But in a show that's all about family togetherness, it really, really sticks out. All right, what do you think, my wonderful viewers? That was my odds and ends episode, just going through all the little bits and pieces that didn't logically fit into the other reviews. Tell me what you think in the comments below. Hit that like and subscribe button, and peace out, my wonderful viewers. Humans are weird. We took a vote. The second book of Human Absurdity is now available in audiobook format. Everywhere where audiobooks are sold, Barnes & Noble, Google Play, Kobo by Rakuten, and of course, Audible and Amazon. So you can now get a copy of the audiobook format of all 70,000 words of Human Absurdity.